Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Play On podcast. This is interview number 3. I'm joined by a friend of the show, back on for another appearance, Ciarán Coffey, formerly of the Wicklow Under 20 footballers and now with the Rathnew Senior Footballers. Ciarán, he's won the semi-final of the league last weekend. He's drew 3-13 to 2-16 against Tinahely. And then he's won the game on penalties. Now he's into a league final. How are preparations going for that?
Yeah, preparations are going well, Seamus. We had a recovery session there last night in British Bay. Got into the water and did a bit of yoga. Yeah, but it was a bit mad, all right, on Sunday. First ever involvement in penalties in a GA match. It was a bit of a weird experience, but yeah, we played Tinahely and in Ockram in the county ground, so we played well. Like it was nip and tuck. The game was. There was goals everywhere, and the final now is league final now is in 2 weeks' time, and it's all about preparing for that against Arklow now on the 4th of September.
Yeah, and of course, championship starts then on the 24th of September. And how much now preparation? Because that's not as much time, as I would expect to have to prepare for championship so soon after another big game.
Oh yeah, like that's 3 weeks away there now, and from that 4 weeks from now, so it's not a whole lot of time. But then as well, there's a lot of championship going on in Wicklow at the minute. There's hurling championship at the minute. The hurling has been ran off before the football. So it's a bit of a weird one at the minute. We don't have our hurlers with us at the minute. We've 5 or 6 hurlers who play for Glenealy. But it's not a whole lot of time, all right. I'm looking forward to it, though. There's nothing you can't beat championship football.
Yeah, no, 100%. And of course, now in Dublin, we've got only the club football to focus on, seeing as we've been knocked out by Mayo. How did you watch that game? What did you make of it?
I watched it now. I saw the second half. I didn't get to see the first half, and I think I was more delighted watching the second half. And I'm actually a big Dublin fan. When I was on with you before, I praised them. I love how they play football,
Yeah.
but I suppose we all love an underdog, and it also helps that Mayo wear red and green like ourselves in Rathnew. But yeah, it was great to see Mayo get over the line, but I've no doubt that Dublin will be back. Like they still have amazing footballers, and without Jack McCaffrey and Paul Mannion, if they come back into the setup, they're still going to be thereabouts next year.
Yeah, and I know you were talking about the style of football, but me personally, I thought the style of football this year was awful. It's the hanging onto the ball for ages, putting most people to sleep. I don't like it. I'm not a big fan of it. I much prefer the attacking, the straight shooting, and being a bit brave, because you're playing the percentage, but that means you never take a risk. And Mayo took risks and they paid off. And I know that sometimes maybe risks don't pay off, but Mayo took more shots. They had more of a goal than Dublin did, particularly in the second half and in extra time. And now, of course, that Dublin have lost, this might be a bit of a catalyst to change things. And as you said, they might come back stronger next year.
Yeah, definitely. As you said, probably the first 3 All Irelands they won in that 6 in a row, would have been a lot more attack minded football. Where at the moment their football, as if it does make sense, the football they're playing, but it is very soccer like. It's all keeping the ball, possession, the ball's precious. But I think you have to give a lot of credit to Mayo. People forget that this Mayo team, arguably in Dublin 6 in a row, should have bet them 2 or 3 times. And I remember a couple of games, I think it was 2-9 to 15 points, and Dublin had scored 2. It was 2 own goals they got, and they got lucky some days. But probably Mayo just had that bit of luck there now on our last weekend now, that a couple of things went right for them. Diarmuid O'Connor getting that ball back in play and stuff. And so, yeah, delighted for Mayo now, but I've no doubt Dublin will be back.
Yeah, no, they will be back next year. So let's go right back to the start of your career. So was it Rathnew always from day one? Was there ever a hint of you playing for another club, or from day one was it always Rathnew that you played for? And if so, who was it really that was the driving force for your football career beginning?
No, it was always Rathnew. My father's from Rathnew, and then my mother is from Wicklow. So at the start, obviously there was a bit of slagging saying, I would have been playing for St. Pat's in Wicklow. But yeah, no, it was always Rathnew. My dad played for Rathnew, was on the Leinster Club Championship winning team. My uncle, my cousins, and they've all represented Wicklow. and then my granddad would have played for Rathnew, as I said. But yeah, I would have started playing when I was about 8. I actually wasn't that bothered too much by it. I was a bit naive when I was younger, a bit probably a bit timid, I'd say. I wasn't mad to go out playing football, like where I've a little brother now, and he's running around, and he's 5 years old, and he's like a mad thing running around. He can't wait to start playing football. But yeah, I was probably a bit timid, and yeah, it was always Rathnew in the end, really.
Yeah, and tell me more about the whole timid thing. So sport, I know for me personally, sport played a massive part in me becoming more confident in outside life as well. Did that definitely help you become more confident in terms of like your social side of your life, and then, you know, through education and other things like that?
Oh, definitely. Like as I said, we're not up in Dublin. It's kind of Rathnew is a village of probably about 2,000 people. It's really the centre. There really isn't a whole lot in Rathnew, bar football. There's a bit of soccer, a bit of darts. There's not a whole lot. So it really, like, if you played well, like, in a game, it really gives you confidence walking around the street and that. But yeah, when I was younger, I would have been a little bit probably naive, and I was happy enough to stay at home and play on my Xbox and stuff. Like, I was only a child. But as I got older and through education, I started enjoying my football, and I was playing other sports. I used to love playing soccer. At the time of probably 12, 13, I'd probably rather playing soccer as when I was growing up, and I would have played everyone. I would have played that, and I played a little bit of hurling, played rugby until I was 16. I used to, every Christmas, we get the dartboard out here. We have a pool table. We played everything, badminton, the whole lot, tennis, golf. I still play golf now. So yeah, sport is definitely a massive thing of bringing out your personality to me, probably like yourself.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I found like I made fantastic friendships throughout the sport as well. There's nothing I found more guaranteed to create a friendship than if you won a really tight match together, if you worked hard and really dug it out together in the fire. And, you know, you mentioned there about how your dad had obviously been very successful with the Leinster winning club team, and obviously then carrying his second name and being his son. Was that ever hanging over your head? Did you ever feel like you were his son and you had something to live up to?
Like, I try not to think about it a whole lot. Like, at the end of the day, like, I probably have a renowned name in Wicklow football, but I don't. At the end of the day, I'm my own man. I'm not my dad. I'm not my uncle Ronan, and I'm not my granddad or anything. And we do get a lot of slagging in the club and all. My brother's on the senior team now as well, and a lot of slagging. You know, there's Sean's brother, or there's Ciarán's brother. You know what I mean? There's a good bit of crack that way. But yeah, I probably was aware of it when I was 15 or 16 years old, but I never like, at the end of the day, I'm my own man. I probably a very similar style to my dad, the way he played, but we definitely have different qualities in other ways as well.
Yeah. And so tell me about this. So you mentioned there that, you know, obviously you kind of were tilted more towards soccer as you were growing up at some stage, and then you had the hurling and the rugby. And was there a stage in your life at any point in particular where Gaelic football really began to become the sport that you wanted to focus on?
I think when I was about 12 or 13, I really got into soccer. I was a centre back in soccer, and I played for Wicklow Rovers. Actually, I never played for Rathnew. With my granddad on my mum's side was a chairman of Wicklow Rovers, so I always played with them as I was growing up. And there probably was a time where I was really enjoying it. Compared to the Gaelic, I wasn't the quickest individual. I'm still not the quickest individual in the world, and I probably got away with it a bit more in soccer than I was in Gaelic at the time. But then when I was about 15, 16, I got big into rugby, played for Wicklow Rugby Club, and I really enjoyed it. And there was probably a time where I really wanted to push with that. But then as you go on, you can't keep doing everything. I was playing golf during the summers and playing soccer. Soccer was clashing with Gaelic, and probably with the whole family history, being a big GA family, like, I probably was more centered towards the Gaelic, and probably I picked Gaelic in the end as my first sport. Has been my first sport ever since. But then as well, I was never pushed to do Gaelic. My dad, my uncle, they loved going to soccer matches, go and watch me play golf, rugby matches. They never told me Gaelic's your sport. If I wanted to be a ballet dancer, they would have supported me as well. So definitely.
Yeah, no, that's a fantastic support base to have behind you, because I was just about to ask you about that. I was about to say that throughout, my career, even I've noticed a lot of the players that I played with, Whitehall, there's a massive, tie with St. Kevin's Football Club. So a lot of people would play for Kevin's in soccer, and then they'd play for Whitehall in Gaelic football. And then a lot of the time there would be clashes in terms of, players would be coming straight from one match to the other, and then eventually they would kind of have to pick. And that would come from both teams. Both teams would kind of, they'd want players that were 100% committed to the cause. Did you ever feel like you were kind of slipping away in certain sports because you hadn't selected one?
I probably didn't as much. I gave up rugby when I was 16. There was a point in time where I was slipping away from rugby a bit. Gaelic was getting more intense. I was on Wicklow development squads, 15, 16, and that was on Saturday mornings, and then you'd have rugby training on Saturday afternoon then. And I just remember one Tuesday evening before I was going to rugby training, I said to my mum, I was like, I don't want to go, and I left it for a week, and then I just ended up never going back. So probably rugby was the big killer, and then soccer was kind of just phased out as I got onto the Rathnew Senior team and the Wicklow Under 20 team when I was about 17 or so. So that was really the end of soccer. Now I still play a bit of soccer here and there for a bit of crack when Gaelic doesn't be played, but yeah, I probably slipped away from a few, definitely.
Yeah, and tell me about that. So from the sounds of it, your decision was kind of made by the fact that you were getting stepped up in the seriousness of, Gaelic football. Like, you're getting onto the Rathnew Seniors, who have been a very successful club in Wicklow over the last few years. Like, I remember them beating St. Vincent's a few years ago, who were the Dublin champions at the time. And then obviously that's a very high level. And then you're also getting called into the Wicklow team, which is inter-county level. Do you think that if you had been called up to a higher level in a rugby or in a soccer, that maybe you would have picked them instead?
I think if I was called up in a soccer level and rugby, I think I definitely would have given it a go anyway. Like, I've a brother and cousins here who have played for Brady Wanderers League of Ireland and that. So I definitely would have given it a go. But I think I always knew I was a decent soccer player. Would have had a little stint with Wicklow County soccer and stuff. But I always knew I was probably my best sport was Gaelic, was probably the one I was the best at in comparison to the other few I was playing. But a big factor in deciding which one was I broke my leg when I was 16. It was actually my first ever game in the Auckland County grounds. It was an under 16, I think it was Division 2 league final. And I broke my ankle that day, and it took me, I was told to get back in 12 months, and I ended up getting back in 11. And I just never, after that, I was 17 at the time, I never went back to soccer or anything after that, and just focused on, I've been playing Gaelic and golf really since. But yeah, you mentioned the Vincent's team there, the wee bet now with Diarmaid Connolly and Mossy Queen and Shane Carty, that they were a great team. We bet them in Ockram. I was actually on the line that day. It was that year I was introduced onto the panel, and I think I was just turned 17, and it was just a great experience to be on the line that day. Like, there was not a hope I was coming on. I actually think I was underage really for being on the line. I was 2000, but yeah, it was great to be on the line that day, and it was my first real experience of championship football and being that close to the action. I'd always went and watched the matches, but yeah, it was a brilliant day, that was.
Yeah, and just before we moved on from that, your injury, that's a massive point in your career, because the way you described it to me is that your entire life up to that point, playing sports that were taken very seriously in all sports, like rugby, soccer, hurling, Gaelic football, and 3 out of them 4 that I've mentioned, with the exception of hurling, were becoming more and more serious as you got older. and all of a sudden then you're in a sustained period where you can't play sport. How did you manage to cope with that? Or did you find anything else that, took up your time? Or was it just a constant, I can't wait to get back playing sports?
Yeah, probably the major thing I did was once I was able to stand, I played pool and darts a lot, and I spent all my time out watching the lads train and going to our matches, and any GA match I was going out to see. And I'd suffered a bad leg break. I broke 3 bones in my ankle. I went up to catch a ball, and when I came down, my ankle folded under me, and it was rough. Now I had spent an hour and a half in Wicklow at the time. There was no ambulance past 7 o'clock, I think, in the evening, and
Wow.
the ambulance had to come from Nice. So I was spending about an hour and a half, an hour 3/4 on the ground. A paramedic came after an hour, and I was high on the Laffy gas. I can't really remember much to be honest, but yeah, I went to where'd I go? I think I went to Vincent's. Yeah, I went to Vincent's and got operation the next morning. And yeah, I just remember I was bedbound then for 3 weeks. I couldn't move. I was in bed. The only time I was allowed to get up was to go toilet. But yeah, so that was them 3 weeks were probably horrible. Like, I was on painkillers constantly. But yeah, probably the big thing with the leg break mentally was staying busy and giving me things to do. And plus, I broke my arm when I was younger, and I was probably a bit naive and thought to myself, oh, it's just like my arm, it'll be better in 6-7 weeks. But the amount of rehab it takes into a leg was unnatural. I broke it in August. It's actually, I saw a memory the other day. It's 5 years ago nearly, I think yesterday or the day before, I broke my leg. And it took me 11 months, thanks to my auntie Neve. She's the Bray Wanderers head physio there last couple of years. She got me back in 11 months, and I've never really looked back since.
Yeah, and do you think that has gone on to really strengthen you, not only physically but mentally? Because I imagine that when you were just sitting there for, as you mentioned, bedbound for 3 weeks, not being able to do anything, and then having to sit there on the sideline and watch the games and watch the training sessions, I imagine that'd be not negative jealousy, but just wishing that you could be back out there yourself. Like, it must have taken an awful lot of mental strength to not, think about it too much and let it get you down.
Oh yeah, definitely. And especially it was under 16. My dad just taken over the team. It was actually one of the first years that I felt I came into my own a bit. I was starting to play really well. I just had a growth spurt. I think I was 6'3", and at the time, and I was feeling a good ball at the time. I think I was anyway. In my brain, I was. But and it took a lot then when I came back. Definitely for 5 or 6 months, it felt weird. My timing was off when I played and stuff. I remember the first 3 or 4 games. But yeah, definitely just keeping busy. It was hard to see because after I went to school, I'd need to come home and lie down for a couple of hours because with your leg be so swelled up from standing up, and then you're in a boo and you weren't really able to go out with your mates that much and stuff. So I probably suffered a bit, mentally a bit for a while, just not knowing it when I was 16. But then once I got back out, it was happy days from there, and it was just great to be back.
Yeah, so obviously returning from that leg break, I imagine it definitely would have toughened you up mentally a lot for what was to come down the line. Obviously, it was very unfortunate you missed playing for the Wicklow Miners, but you did get called into the Wicklow Under 20 setup, and that, looking back, very, very talented Wicklow setup. You had a minor all-star in there, Owen Darcy, other very, very good players. How did it feel to be part of a Wicklow setup that, was a very promising under 20 team? Because if you look even this year, they gave Dublin a right good battle before Dublin eventually got the goal, which kind of killed it off. How did it feel to be in a setup with a lot of very, very talented players?
I got a call off Kevin Gill, who's actually a Rathnew man. He's a good friend of my dad's. He was selector on the first Wicklow, my first 2 years of under 20, and it was a real boost because I'd just been back from a leg break. I didn't get to tog out with Wicklow minors, and it was the year they just went from under 18 to under 17, so we kind of missed out on a year. So it was great to get in with the under 20s, and with John Evans, who of course was Wicklow senior manager at the time, was over the under 20s.
Yeah,
and it was a real eye opener. He really drove on standards. His training was exceptional. It was all from, as he was a Kerry man, so it was all ball work, high intensity ball work. It was a real eye opener that way. But yeah, it was great. And then ended up playing Wicklow under 20 championship, or not Wicklow under 20, Leinster under 20 championship against Meath, Laois and Kildare. Now we got hammered by Kildare. Clare went on and won the All Ireland that year with the likes of Aaron Marston and
Jimmy Hyland,
who are now on the Kildare senior team at the minute.
yeah.
But we gave Laois a grade. We got bet in Port Laois 114 to 113, and it was great to be called into a setup like that, especially after my leg break. And but yeah, we had then John Evans for 2 years, and then Kevin O'Brien took it over. He was the minor manager for when Wicklow got to a Leinster semi-final a couple of years ago in a replay against Kildare. They bet Dublin and Meath that year in the minor, the Wicklow team, and some great players like Owen Darcy and Matthew Ging, and real young talents. And yeah, and then last year we got bet by Dublin ourselves in Ockram, one just before the pandemic started, 117 to 1-7 or 8. We played the likes of Archer and Odell, and yeah, it was a privilege to play for Wicklow, because as it is to always represent your village in Rathnew, but to go on that extra step, it was brilliant.
Yeah, definitely. And to move on then from that, so obviously getting the call onto the Rathnew Senior setup, did you find it harder to adapt to the Rathnew Senior setup, or would you have found it harder to adapt to the under 20 setup?
Definitely the Rathnew Senior setup. I was probably naive as well when I was 16, 17. I remember getting a phone call from Harry Murphy, who was the manager of the Rathnew Senior sometime, and from the Leinster team 2001 he managed. But I remember getting a phone call and thinking, oh yeah, I'm going to be on this team next year. And I remember my very first match against Dunlavin, I think in senior league, and I remember just the thumps and hit I got. I really noticed that I'm going to have to work on in the gym for the next couple of years and bulk myself up, because I came from playing under 16 and minor, and even at under 20 level, the first year of under 20s I would have noticed a good bit of the size wise, but playing then as a 20-year-old under 20s, I was always big. I'm 6'6" and 16 stone, so I'm not small. I was able to throw my weight around, where when I was 17 playing senior, it was so hard to grasp playing grown men, especially in over in West Wicklow, where they just hit and thump you. So yeah, it was definitely harder that way.
No, 100%. And obviously as a friend of yours in college, I've noticed that, I noticed it immediately, how tall and how big you are. And I guarantee that going on to a senior setup, that the fact that you are physically bigger than most of the lads that would be on the senior team already, that would almost kind of, do you think, single you out more for a bit of physical punishment rather than people that were smaller? Because it's almost like they're making a statement to you that you're not going to come up to senior and have it your own way, just like you do at, the age group that you're in.
As I say, the bigger they are, the harder they fall. I definitely would have felt it massively, and especially being 16 in your own head, I was catching ball. Lads that were playing were probably 3 or 4 inches below me, and you kind of naively came up and thought to myself, oh yeah, I'm going to catch ball. And it's kind of a shock to the system when you weren't able to do things that you were doing when you were 16, 17 against your own age group. And it was kind of, for them 2 or 3 years, I'm 21 now, until I was really 19, I probably felt like I'm not able to hold off my man and really battle with him. So you kind of had to adapt for a while and change. But yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And obviously now you've made that transition, and now I imagine you feel more stable in the Rathnew Seniors because you've gone through the initiation stage, if you like, or the being ingrained into the team. Which qualities do you think that a team has to have to really bring through young lads? Because I imagine the transition is quite intimidating to go into a senior side that, as you've mentioned, was on their way to beating St. Vincent's, who were fancy to go all the way that year. It was a very successful team. And, I imagine it was quite intimidating to get into a team like that, especially when you're such a young lad. Which qualities do you think need to be in a team to help bring these young lads in, having gone through it yourself?
I definitely think the qualities that are needed would be like you got to trust and have a lot of like trust between the players around you. Like I would have marked James Stafford a lot in training, and I've learned a lot off him. And it's very different where like if I was 17 coming into a team maybe in junior football team who were striving to win their junior championship, I probably would have been on the team when I was under 17. Where I feel like last year was my real breakthrough with the seniors because of how successful, like Rathnew have 34 senior championships in Wicklow and a Leinster Club Championship. And at time, the year I came in, we just bet St. Vincent's and were bet by Moorfield in the Leinster semi-final. So it definitely wasn't easy to just break into a team like that. But yeah, the qualities like of the team to really like, you weren't taking, no one nursed you in. Like once I remember my very first training session, lads telling me to call for a ball. The next thing you know, you get a thump in your back and a fist into your ribs and that. So like there was no taking it back on young lads. You were thrown into the deep end, which is probably a good thing. Like you have to learn eventually. So yeah, like some great qualities we have was we're all like a one for all for one. Like we always fight for each other. We've great Rathnew spirit, really. We call it like a great spirit and heart and determination, where it was probably seen at the weekend there against Tinahely that like we never said die, even though we probably didn't have our best games, and we won a lot of games through them. So games like that where we never said die and we somehow got her out of the bag.
Yeah. And, definitely having a unity like that in the team is vitally important. But following, obviously, your last year with the Wicklow 20s, you get released then back into, playing just for your club for a little while. Did you find that almost refreshing? Because I imagine the county setup was very, very, very serious. And, you didn't go straight into the senior setup, but I imagine that it is a goal of yours to play for the seniors one day. But is it refreshing to have even just a little while where you can just focus on your club?
Yeah, like playing with the lads some lads there, 6 or 7 of us that you grew up with. And there's lads who there like you've looked up to that won senior championships, won games by themselves, legends really, like of the club that you're playing with now. It's kind of like when I was 15, 16, you're like, geez, they could never see myself playing with them. And now you're all of a sudden playing with them. So it's always like great to play for your club. And especially when coming back, like you probably say we're very serious in Rathnew, like we train very hard. But then as well, there's a different sort of crack element in the club compared to the county. Like county was great, but you just can't be the crack you have with the club, and they're slagging and you wouldn't know what be said in the pitch. It's brilliant. But yeah, definitely it was refreshing to get back. And especially this year itself there's a real good vibe around training. We're training now this evening. And yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, and is it a goal of yours to get back onto the Wicklow setup this time at senior sometime in the future?
Oh yeah, definitely, like 100%. Like obviously it's a lot different. I'd say like I'm an out and out midfielder, so it's hard. You're playing for 2 positions in a whole county, but yeah, no, there's been great work with the Wicklow seniors this year. Like Davy Burke now has just left us there now, but he did great work for 2 years there. Now we're in Division 3, so things are looking up. But yeah, definitely in a couple of years' time. Anyway, there's no reason why you can't believe you'll get there anyway.
100%, 100%. And like Davy Burke, as you mentioned, he did fantastic work, and I think him leaving is definitely a blow to the setup because he definitely lifted the standards. Obviously, getting promoted from Division 4, staying in Division 3 by beating the Ulster champions, that was an amazing result. And now, of course, that momentum has to be kept along. But the way when you were talking to me after that game, it really does seem like there is a real group of lads there in Wicklow that are really, really determined to drive the standards on. And obviously you mentioned about John Evans taking over the under 20 setup, and we talked about the minor all-stars that are coming through. Do you think that the Wicklow standard of football is on the rise?
Oh yeah, definitely. Like even probably in the senior club championship, you can see it. Like there's 6 or 7 teams there now that anyone could win championship this year. Where in past years there would have been probably ourselves, Pats of Wicklow Town, and Bottinglass over the west. Like there's probably only 3 there for 20 years. Like Bottinglass won 8 in a row, we won 8 in a row, Pats have won a few. So, but now like there's 6 or 7 clubs that are really bringing it on, and it's shown in the Wicklow games as well. Like I know we lost to Wexford in the championship this year. It was probably a bit of a shock, but we had a good few out injured. But yeah, no, definitely.
Didn't Healy miss that game?
Dean Healy's massive loss for the county team, and we 2 or 3 of our under 20s who were kept for the Dublin match then as well, who were Kevin Quinn, Owen Darcy, the minor all-star there. A few of them, Zach Cullinan, that was kept. But yeah, no, definitely in a couple of years' time, that hopefully them young lads and a few lads like myself now bring it on again, like, and bring Wicklow to the next level. All we want to be is competitive. Obviously, you strive to be the best, but for a good few years there, Wicklow were down the dumps and didn't look like we're going anywhere. But now, all of a sudden, we look like we're competitive again, which is great. And yeah, hopefully better times ahead.
Yeah, 100%. And I would love to see us make a real push for it in Leinster, especially. I'd love to see some competition in the province. Like I love seeing when Meath and Kildare are getting better, and particularly when Kildare won the under 20 All Ireland with the likes of Jimmy Hyland and Masterson. It was a real sign of, maybe there's a bit more competition coming in. But yeah, like that all brings us up now to the current day. You have won the league semi-final, obviously on penalties, which is surreal. You've got that league final coming up. How do you feel now, like going into that? Do you feel confident that you can get the job done?
Yeah, confident. We're moving well at the minute. If we've a couple of lads injured at the minute, Ross O'Brien, who was on the county senior team, Jamie Snell, who was on the county senior team, out for a few weeks. But if we get them lads back now, we'll be motoring. At the end of the day, championship is the main goal. The main goal. Obviously, you want to win every competition that you're in, and if there's a cup there, like we want it, like so. Yeah, confident going into it now. Confident in everyone's ability. So yeah, looking forward to it.
Yeah, perfect. And I wish you the best of luck, Ciarán. It's been an absolute pleasure again. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks, Seamus.
All right, guys, that's the end of this podcast. We hope you enjoy listening to it. Don't forget to look at all our other content. Take care, guys.